What is up, everyone? Welcome to our discussion of Men to the Table. We are your hosts, Jaime Trevino.
And Terry Robinson. Today we're going to be discussing our childhood, which is the foundation of who we become as adults. Got to tell you, this is going to be by far the most difficult of discussions.
It is. I'm already getting the jitters a little bit.
I am too. What we want you to know is that you don't have to live in the shadows of your childhood. We're going to be discussing some things today that it's going to be very emotional for the both of us, but it's okay because this is what we have to do. We have to come to terms with who we are, how our childhood affected us, so we can move on and become better men.
Absolutely. As we start to talk more about this openly, it would really help with our healing process. And as we get into this healing process, we're able to identify whatever triggers that we may have to this day as an adult. And at the same time, even those traumas from the past actually creates addictions, from alcoholism to drug abuse, whatever that case may be. And Dr. Gabor Mate, really cool guy, man. Something we should check out one day. But this guy right here, he is a doctor, and he realized that most of the addictions come from childhood traumas. So, can't wait to get to it, man.
Well, we want everyone to know that by discussing it, too many people think that strong men keep things inside.
Correct.
And if you hold it inside, you're screaming. I mean, it's a voice that no one hears except for the person that's carrying it.
Correct. It's just something hidden. There was an author, and her last name is Gibson, Lindsay Gibson, and she says it's something where it's a hidden emotional absence. There's a void. So when sometimes we're doing some things, for example, we're over shopping just so that we can feel validated about buying, having something, or even a common thing for us guys, oh man, get a new car, whatever the case may be, just to fill in that void, whatever that may be. Well, that comes from the void, and that comes from that emptiness you're talking about.
Let's start this out by let us give you an idea of who we are and what we went through as children. Again, it's very emotional to do something like that, but the only way that we are going to become better is to discuss it. We need for you to know, because we're learning ourselves, that we're not alone. We all have this childhood issues in our lives. I don't know really of anyone that's had a perfect childhood. So everything affects us. Some of them are much more severe than others,
Yes, yeah.
which you and I have had plenty of discussions, and we know that our childhood was pretty similar.
Yeah.
And I'll start it.
Sure.
I come from a very loving home from my mother. Unfortunately, I was raised by a very abusive, alcoholic father. God rest his soul. And I say that because the last 6 years of his life, 7 years, I got to know the person that he was. And I thank God for that. He put away the bottle. Very responsible alcoholic. And I mean that by the way he was raised is through, alcoholics, very abusive. He carried that trait over into our home. When I say responsible, well, he was responsible to his job. He put food on the table, 32 years at his job, and never missed a day of work. And that was his idea of being a man, being a father. But the destruction that it left behind, you know, we had 6, 7 of us kids were in one bedroom. It was a 2-bedroom home. Wouldn't take anything for it. One, because I can't. But we had each other. And through the love of our mother, keeping us, I guess, safe in that abusive, toxic environment, it was incredible that we even survived. My older brother, unfortunately, he left home early. My other older brother was gone at 12, 13 because he couldn't take the abuse anymore, and because he felt he had to protect us. My sisters were gone, so it left my twin brother and I were the last. But it was so abusive that police were at our house 2-3 times a week. My mother in and out of the hospital from getting beaten by my father. We slept. This is how deep it goes. We slept. My brother and I were very close, and we always slept together and wrapped ourselves around each other. But we had a little pocket knife that we had underneath the pillow just in case, you know, that abuse came at us, and it did. But it's extremely emotional for me, and that's, you know, I'm getting that way now. But again, if it wasn't not for the love that we had from our mother and the love that we had as kids, you put 7 kids in one bedroom, and we respected and loved and took care of each other, and we still do today. That love is real,
Yeah.
because it's all that we had.
Right.
And and you,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about your story.
Wow. You know, you said something that I never, it's just something that just popped up that I totally forgot about my dad. Yeah, so my dad was an abusive person too. And you said it perfectly. Responsible alcoholic. My dad was that person. Never missed a day. I couldn't even miss school. So my strong work ethics that I have, I got to see that because of my dad. So that's one good thing. But what happened to me? The abuse was there. So just what you're dealing with. So my mom, she was a loving mom. She did her very best. So I had a brother too. I'm sure my brother had it worse. So we're like 10 years apart. So, and then it didn't help that my brother was gay. So I'm sure there was issues there with my dad too, right? But I remember, I don't have a lot of memory being a kid. As I started to go to therapy, I started getting memories again, and I'll talk about it too. But when I do remember certain things, they were the abusive moments. So I remember I was a little kid. The first time I remember, to this day, I still, it's the only memory that I have that's really strong. I can remember the color of the carpet, the cup, what I was drinking. I mean, it was that detailed. Like that's really penetrating to my mind. Well, just to kind of give you an idea how my dad was. So I had a cup of Kool-Aid, and I was drinking it, and I was like around maybe 4 or 5, somewhere around there. And I tripped, and I spilled the Kool-Aid on the carpet by accident. And oh man, I remember my dad getting upset. And I don't know if you've had this when you were a child, when you were scared, especially during those abusive moments. But you get this blood pressure, or at least for me, around my hairline area, And it was just this intense fear. Because I knew that my dad was gonna physically abuse my mom for my mistake. So that was one time. And then because of that, when I started going to school, and I would get bullied in school, like I would get beat, people would try to beat me up and stuff. It wasn't that I wasn't, it wasn't that I was scared to defend for myself, or I was scared that they were gonna call the school, that the school was gonna call my parents or my dad. And if that happens, then my mom was gonna get beat up. So I just took it and took it. So to this day, I still have a high tolerance of suffering and pain. I can still work through it. I can still live through it. I can still, I'll be a zombie, but I can go through it, but he was a very responsible person, like in the sense where, he never missed work, worked a lot, provided for us. And, I had clothes, I had, everything that I needed, to serve, to have I guess, a life, I guess, if you want to call it that. So my brother was a big part of my life too. So, but I understand now as an adult what he was trying to do. He was just trying to protect me, and my dad wasn't there for me, like in a sense, as a father to help me identify who I am or anything of that nature. Because he was brought up just like a man just comes in, takes care of the house, pays the bills, make sure you got food on the table, and that's a badass father. That's that mentality. And so then my brother was the one that got me into baseball. My brother was the one that took me to school, to the library, to story time stuff. I love story time because I didn't know how to read. I realize now that I started reading out of third grade, and I think it was just because my brain was always in survival mode. I couldn't pick up things from school. I couldn't learn because I was just worried, okay, what's gonna happen at home, when I would, after school. So school was the safe part, even though there was a lot of chaos going on. It was still safer for me there than it was at home, But yeah, that's some of it right there.
How bad did the abuse get in your household?
It got really bad. It got bad when my dad just would come home, and if my mom just didn't have the food on time for some reason, whatever the case may be, that's where the verbal abuse started kicking in. And then this is the part now that I see it, it's like I can identify it on people. And so the day after the abuse, he would just go buy some flowers and give them to my mom. And that was his way of saying sorry, but that's an empty sorry.
Oh, absolutely.
Because he never changed. At that time, yeah, I was just like, that was normal. And as I started working through whatever I didn't even know I had until now, it's like I went through these moments of like, punk ass dad, like, oh man, I was so pissed, so upset, I'm healed now. I'm good on that part. It's just, but of course, and healed, what I mean by that, I forgive my dad, I understand. That was the capacity he had to give love, and I'm glad that I'm able to overcome
Absolutely.
that, to be a better man now.
Well, that's part of breaking the generational curses
Exactly.
that we speak about. The abuse was so bad in our house. My mother put up with it for so long,
Yeah.
to where she was just beaten, and having to go to the hospital. But she took those beatings thinking that was protecting us, the kids, until we got old enough to where he started beating us
Oh my God.
along with it.
Yeah.
And you talk about a mama bear. I remember the first time she fought back. My dad was doing some work around in the kitchen and ripped out some boards, and he had them next to the door. And my mother, she finally had enough, and she had to. Divorce was not an option for my mother. The way she was raised is, you're married, for richer, for poor, for whatever it may come. You've got to stay in the marriage, because she wanted to keep that foundation for us, not knowing the damage it was doing to us. But she reached around and she grabbed a board and she started hitting him with that board. And I remember it like it was yesterday, and I was probably 5, and he started screaming her name, and it's the first time I've seen him cower, because he was getting some punishment back. But as she was hitting him, blood was squirting on the walls, and it was just squirting everywhere. Well, that board had nails in it.
Oh wow.
And she didn't intentionally pick up a board with nails. That was just a board right there, and she was going to fight back. You would think that he would have learned his lesson, not to fool my mother then, or any of us, but she just learned to fight. So the fighting became a lot more vicious after that, because from boiling hot water being poured on him, from her getting slapped to my twin and I, we thought that we were going to fix a problem one night. So we took his half a gallon of Jim Beam, and we ran out the back with it, and we threw it over the fence. Well, he was really angry, but he couldn't catch us. We were pretty fast.
Yeah.
And he was already intoxicated. So he climbed over the fence, and when he did, he broke his leg. But he was still screaming that he was going to get my brother. And my mother heard that screaming, so he hauled him back with that liquor in his hand. And as he walked in the back door, she was waiting for him, and she was going to protect her cubs. And she swung away, and she hit him in his other leg. So he finally quieted down and went to sleep. But the next morning, we slept in the floor because there were so many of us. I could see him dragging himself around, just pulling on anything he can pull. And my mother finally said, "Look, we need to go and see what's wrong with you." But he had broken both of his legs.
Wow. Both
of his legs. And that's the type of trauma that we grew up in. I'm so fortunate to have the brothers and sisters that I had and the love that we had. I am. I'm just, or I don't know where I would be today.
Yes.
But I can tell you what it did do. I have not, in almost 59 years, have accepted everything that was inside me, and until, and I mentioned this in the last podcast, was Freedom Weekend.
Yeah.
To where I had to deal with all that. I had to get it out. I wondered why I was never happy.
Oh my God.
Why was I never happy? Nothing was good enough. I blew opportunities. It just wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
because of all the pain I had inside. So I was always looking for that better. better. That'll make me feel better. That'll make me feel good. The codependency, we'll discuss that later, is real.
It is.
And that codependency is, I was always worried about everyone else and never worried about myself.
And you touched on something that I can relate 100%. Like I mean, it's just nothing's good enough, right? You're not happy. There's this feeling that you might have a moment of joy, but it's just a moment and it fades away right away again. And then that bitterness of unhappiness, whatever that may be, it's still there. Can you give me an example of something that you experienced that you thought you would get happy with, but you didn't ever got happy with whatever you did?
Well, my career for one.
Okay.
All I ever wanted to be since I can remember wanting to be something was to be a policeman. Didn't know why at the time. Why did I mean, I strived to be a policeman. That was what I was going to do. It was where I was going to be for the rest of my entire life. And when I got on the police department, I loved it. It's me. It was in me. But I had this feeling of, well, is this it? Is there a better department? So I switched departments. Well, is this me? Is there a better department? I switched back to departments. I was in and out. I loved the job, but again, I couldn't be happy because of the codependency. And it wasn't until, again, Freedom Weekend, when we were having discussions on why did you want to be a policeman? What made you want to be one? And I just always wanted to be one. But
Yes.
in the earlier discussions, you were talking about policemen being at your house all the time. What did they do? They saved the day. They stopped the chaos.
Yeah.
They broke it up. They took him to jail. Whatever. So I looked up to policemen as being saviors.
Wow.
And so it's like, wow, that's where I got it from.
Yeah. That's
I just,
wow.
it's incredible how our childhood, it shapes who we are.
It does. It sure does.
But the problem being, you and I have great discussions all the time.
We sure do.
Very, very, very deep.
Yeah.
Is if you don't find a way to get that ugliness out, it will destroy you. You'll never become who God intended you to be.
You'll never get to your full potential. Absolutely. Yeah.
It'll stop you from loving.
Yes.
It'll stop you from achieving. You'll be, in other people's eyes, you may be, well, he's got a good life. Well, you got to work really hard even to have what appears to be a good life.
Yes.
But I don't want to appear to have a good life.
Correct.
I want to love and I want to be loved. I want to love myself. And I'm really starting to love myself.
Yes.
And it's not an arrogance, because I confuse that with, well, that makes me self-centered.
Yes.
And it's
a lot of people
nothing.
get confused with that, and it's like, no, it has nothing to do with that.
No, it's not. I'm walking around, with all this machismo.
Or conceited or whatever.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
This is, I want to love myself so I can share what I have inside. But I have to empty the ugliness that's inside.
Yeah.
And I have to discuss it. I have to get it out. And when I found that, what? You went through something like that? What you did? What you did? What you did?
Yes.
And then it made me realize that we all have our issues.
Mm-hmm.
And we all need to, that's the first thing is discussion,
Discussion. Yeah.
is coming to terms with it, discussing that.
And having the courage. And having the courage to be able to discuss it. That's that right there is the hardest part for so many men. And it's not a coincidence that we met each other at the time that we met. It's like you were in your awakening already. I was already in my awakening already. And when we talk, one of the many things that I love about our relationship, our friendship, is that it's never surface talk. It's always, deep conversations.
It is.
Like every time, even when we just hang out, just being ourselves, I learn something new all the time with you.
And I do as well. And it's enlightening to be around a group of people that can have these type of discussions, that can uplift one another, that because we're not healed.
No,
We're healing.
it's a journey.
It is a journey, and as long as we're on that journey to become better men for our families, our wives, community, each other, ourselves,
Yeah.
that's the progress that I can live with. I don't have to be healed. I have to be in the process of healing.
You said it perfect, absolutely.
And that is the satisfaction that I'm getting from having the conversations with you. That is what I'm getting from having conversations with anyone who's watching the podcast. We're not in it for the money, that's for sure.
No.
There is not. We're in it because we want to make a difference.
And can I say something that goes with about loving yourself?
Absolutely.
Because that's something that's really important for many of us, right? So there's this quote that I love, I really try to focus on, and it's by Ram Dass. And Ram Dass is more like a guru or something, that's meditation and spiritual. And this is what he has. It's awesome. As you dissolve into love, your ego fades. You're not thinking about loving. You're just being love. You radiate like a sun. I mean, that's just like,
I like that.
yeah,
I like that.
You're just trying to tap in. The more we learn how to love ourselves, as we start to heal more and more, the more that love and that compassion overflows the cup that we have. And it just becomes being love to everybody we make contact with.
I love it. And I tell you what, being where we are in the healing that we have done, and the love that we want to show other people, at first I wasn't even used to it. Now I'm used to it. And then I wasn't used to some thinking that, they're not those type of people. They don't really love as much as they appear to love. And that's okay for people to have their own opinions, because it doesn't matter to me.
Correct.
I'm at a point in my life where I am who I am. You accept me or you don't accept me.
And that's part of the love, the self-love. We're not for everybody.
Nope.
But at least if we can, inspire some people, or at least help them, find that, hey, you're not the only one going through what you're going through. There's many of people that are going through the same thing or similar. Yeah. Well, I just want to say, from learning from my past, I know the type of strength one needs to be able to connect with themselves, to be able to take it out and speak to others. So I just want to say, man, you are very powerful, strong, not only a man, but a human being.
And you as well.
Thank you.
I think the world of you.
Same here.
So let's continue to make a difference.
That's absolutely. Can't wait for the next episode.
Yeah.
All right.
If you liked our discussion today,
Don't forget to hit the like button and also subscribe. Yeah, do it now.
hit it,
Hit it right there.
hit it,
Right there. Subscribe.
please, now.